we thought we would start with a little introduction about ourselves. So we are WBWC. I'm Riley. I'm promotions director,
I'm Josh. I'm the operations director.
and we
Sick.
are a college-run radio station at Baldwin Wallace University, kind of in Cleveland.
Yeah, I know of it. That's so dope, man. I love it. This is sick. Did I meet you guys at Wonderstruck by any chance?
Yes, you did. You didn't meet us, but you did meet our radio station.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I was wondering if I'd met you guys personally there or not. Okay, sweet.
Yeah. So we thought we would just start with asking you to introduce yourself. Who are you, and where you come from, and all of that sweet jazz.
Please. Yo, I'm Adam Paddock. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and my whole band is from Columbus. And so we're based out of there. We're an alternative pop rock vibe. We take a lot of inspiration from like The Killers, Coldplay. That's kind of our avenue and stuff. And yeah, we're doing a lot this year.
That's awesome. I'm actually from Columbus myself too, so it's really cool to see Columbus native people out here taking on the world.
Let's go, man. Columbus against the world. I mean, that's what I've been saying, you
That's
know?
right. I saw you did a thing with the crew a couple years ago, so that was really cool.
Dude, you did some homework if you if you found that. That's way back there. I'm impressed. Yeah.
What do
That
you
was
want?
a fun.
Talk us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into like your upcoming and all that stuff. But just because I'm a little geek and I want to know a little bit more about Columbus and stuff, tell us about that experience, how you went through the process and then actually performing the
Yeah,
national
dude.
anthem.
Absolutely. The national anthem there was through a really funny connection. My friend Katie, she happened to be interning with the crew, and I guess they had somebody like bail like 2 days before, and she gave me a call. She was like, "This is super last minute, but would you want to sing the national anthem?" And it happened to be one of the biggest games of the season, just like a total coincidence. I said, "Absolutely, I'll be there," you know. But I had only really ever sung the national anthem in like my high school and like I don't know, really small events. So this is another level. But once you perform in front of that many people, it or at least for me, it like stops being scary because it's just like so much that like I don't know, it's not overwhelming anymore. Like it's the same thing as artists say in small venues when like those are scarier than like the really big ones because you can see everyone's faces in the small rooms. But in like the really big spaces it's not as scary. So yeah, we recorded that one. It was crushed. I think I did a good job. It was a whole day. Like I got there probably 10 a.m. They we did a bunch of like practice run throughs because they needed to time things like with like the whatever, not fireworks, but whatever they were like shooting off on the field. And also like just with like the jumbotron, I couldn't go over a certain amount of time. It was a really really cool experience, and they gave me a crazy amount of free tickets, free merch, and I will do it again in a heartbeat.
Love the crew. Love the crew.
All
Yeah,
right.
man.
So we wanted to ask you about how your journey started, especially being like a rising artist. Like, who inspired you? How did you start your music journey?
Man, that's a long story, but I can abridge it a little bit. I
Okay.
love that. I love this question so much. So I grew up playing trumpet and baritone in band. So like I have a brass background, which I think could become somewhat evident through all of our like newer music, where like there's just horns very involved. But I was never really interested in singing. I had a lot of sisters. I thought that was their kind of thing, and I would do sports. They would do like show choir and everything. And then senior year of high school, well, I guess the end of junior year of high school, my friends convinced me to try out, and I had never sung in front of anybody, and decided I'm going to go after this and just try to dance my way in, not like sing my way in, because I just didn't know if I could sing. I thought I sounded okay in the shower, but never did I think it was going to be a strong suit. And I auditioned. The show choir I ended up part of was number two in the nation. I was the soloist for for that group, which is crazy. I was named one of the top 25 soloists in the nation, which is crazy. And there's just like a big, long, like, and no one expected that from me, and even I didn't expect that from me. And I know I can credit a lot of that to my director for show choir because he took me under his wing and taught me how to be an actual singer, not just like scream in the shower vibes, you know?
Right.
And so that's how I got started singing. And then in high school and I think beginning college, that's when I picked up guitar and piano as well. And then sophomore year, I built out a studio in my basement, actually, in my dad's basement without telling him in the unfinished portion of it. So I just moved everything out of the unfinished portion of the basement, nailed a bunch of carpet to the ceilings, walls, and floors. It was crude, it smelled weird, and it was as DIY as it gets. But I learned how to produce music there, made a ton of music during COVID, and then the stuff that I deemed good at the time is what I put out as the first 9 songs at the end of 2020. And so that's kind of how I got started. I would say an important piece also to mention is how I met the band, because they are such a vital piece to like what I do. Because we always say Adam Paddock is a band. There's a whole like hashtag push that like that was a thing. And we randomly were offered the spot to open for Waka Flocka Flame, which made no sense at all for like our music, like even a little bit. But ended up crushing that, and then that's where I met all my band. We ended up, like, I don't think we've played a show without at minimum 3 of the 4 of us being there, which is nuts. So that band has stood the test of time, and now we're doing like our own headlining tours and putting out albums, and it's crazy. So that's how we got started, from athlete Adam to the Adam that you know now.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. So obviously you started making music in 2020, and now you come out with your new EP, Sweet Ohio Light Part One.
Sir.
Even from athlete Adam to 2020 Adam to now, what are some of the biggest things that you've learned in your music career?
Dude, I love that. Also, am I being too long-winded, or is this
Oh,
okay?
it's
Oh no, this
perfect.
is perfect.
Yes.
Okay,
More the
sweet.
merrier.
I know
Yes.
with radio sometimes it's easier to just like
Yeah, no, I
get to
get
the
it.
point,
But
dude.
the more
Okay.
the merrier. The more the
Yes.
merrier.
Okay, sweet. It's good to know. I can give you more. So some of the things that I think are the most important that I've learned, I mean, the number one thing that I'm going to stand on, the hill that I will die on, is that people are the point. That's something that we've built a lot of our branding around, and I think that's something I believed prior, but it's taken on completely new meaning as like I don't know, everyone really strives for like the thousands of people at a show, but if you don't care about the 20 people who show up to your show in the middle of nowhere, like that means you're not doing it for the right reasons. And so I've had my ego checked a handful of times in the best of ways that has made me a better person and artist, and made me believe even harder that people are the point. Someone along the way recommended. He said, I don't know if you know who Gatton is, Gatton. He had a massive song. I think it's called like When Scars Become Art on TikTok. Really big song. But I was learning a lot from him, and he and I were on a call one day, and he said, champion someone every day. On the worst of your days, champion them, and it'll make your day better. On best of your days, champion someone, and it'll make it even better. And so that's another thing that I learned. And I think learning from example, this is a really good example. Do you guys know who Jake Miller is by any chance?
Name
You
does
might
sound
not.
name does sound familiar.
Sure, sure. He was huge on YouTube like in the 2010s, and now he has his own music thing. Well, we opened for him, and I feel like that was on a string of opening for a lot of people. And they it was normal like headliner to opener relationship where they would maybe say hi, maybe not, and we'd barely interact. But like he sought us out. He gave us compliments on really old songs and new songs, and just encouraged us. And he just did not need to do that, but it inspired me a lot, because no matter how big he is, because like in his prime he toured with Justin Bieber. Like the dude has played arenas and stadiums, but when we were playing a 400 cap room that was only half sold, he still went, like, was so intentional to go back and listen to a bunch of my music, who at the time I think I had like 200 monthly listeners, and like actually care. So I think those are 3 things that I've learned either by example or just like verbatim, like that have really improved me as an artist and as a person.
Oh, that's huge. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, speaking of your journey and how people have inspired you, if you could give a young artist who is trying to make it some advice, what would you give them?
I think that every time I'm asked this question, I like give a different answer, because something different in like the phase of artistry I'm in uh, comes up. So right now I'm kind of in like a renaissance of some sort where I feel like I've made a lot of music that's serviceable and very fun, but less deep than I feel like will stand the test of time. So I think that's a really big thing that I'm learning right now. And some advice I could give to younger artists is don't make the song that's gonna like bang for the next 2 months. Make the song that's gonna like that you're gonna show your grandchildren someday, you know? Because I think now that we're bringing so much more depth and meaning into everything, we're creating fans that care a lot less about me and care a lot more about the art, which is like the direction you want to go. Do you know what I mean? Or at least the direction I want to go. Some people just want to have a radio hit and like that's a great thing and you'll make a lot of money. But I would rather have a career than a flash in the pan. And so I think some good advice is to play the long game. And if you want this to be a like 2 year experience, yeah, you're in for a rough one. It's a
Yeah,
lifestyle, man.
absolutely. So with your new tour coming up, you've played a lot of shows, you've opened a lot of shows. Have you ever
Mhm.
had like a moment where you've like looked out in the crowd, or maybe it was after the show and you've been like, I've made it. Like this is I finally like made it as an artist.
Totally, absolutely. There are two times. One was just the other night, and they both come while crowd surfing. You know, I think that's like a pretty telling moment. So, you guys might know about the festival that I run in Columbus called Columbus Against the World, which is hosted at the Newport. And last year we sold almost 1,000 tickets. It was like a really big win. This year we're looking like we'll probably be around that same number, which is exciting. And I like at the very end of the night, we go last. It's an equal billing. Everyone gets the same amount of time, but I just want everyone to win. Everyone who usually wouldn't get to play the Newport gets to play it because we're all putting everything in. Um, it was a long day. It was learning a lot about how to throw an event like that. And I just was crowd surfing over a couple hundred people looking up at this like iconic venue. And that's a moment that I felt like, hey, I've made it. I think looking back, that I made it was a little bit naive because it was like there's still so much work to do, you
Mhm.
know? But I think the other night I had another one of those moments where we just headlined down here in Nashville and we sold almost 300 tickets, which is crazy because like we're not based here and it's our first headliner outside of our hometown on like a real tour. Like we've headlined cities, but like this feels definitive, you know? And I was crowd surfing there and had a moment looking up in this small like 400 cap club in Nashville, feeling like this is what it's about because I was like looking down and looking around and there were so many people I knew, but there were also so many people I didn't know. And I think that's a sign of the tides changing in a great way.
Yeah,
That's awesome to
absolutely.
hear. Obviously, Adam, you are the spotlight of your band, right? Everyone looks at you and think, "Oh my gosh, Adam, he's so talented." But you can't do it without the band. You said it earlier, the push hashtag, right? So go a little
Hmm.
bit of depth about how important the other members of the band is. Tell me a little bit about them, and then tell us just like a unique story of how you met the band and like what you guys do for fun. Let's get to be Adam
Come
and
on.
be a part of the band.
Yeah, come on now. I love that. You're the energy you're bringing to this is the best. So the band is right now a four-piece, including me. So the backbone of the entire band. So like we have tried to play shows without him, but it never goes as well as we hope. Is our drummer Adrian Oliver. So Adrian grew up in his words, the gospel chops are what like really make him different, especially in pop. And so what he brings to the band, like from a live perspective, is not only like the gospel chops and like adding some spice to this white boys thing, you know, it's also the entire production rig. So he's built out the entire system from like wireless in-ears to wireless like guitars and everything else to like running Ableton and creating tracks and click tracks and everything like that for us. He's taken on that entire responsibility. And when we play like big college shows and we are bringing a lot of gear, it's just a crazy weight off my shoulders to be able to hand that to him and say, hey, I trust you. You got this. Here's the budget. just try to stay under it and let's cook. And so Adrian brings a lot of security to the band. And I know I can trust him because he also works really, really hard to sound incredible. If you're in a green room before a show, you will find him locked in his AirPods, just practicing along to a metronome. So that's Adrian. Max Liu is our guitarist, and he's actually taken on a little bit of background vocal work for the band as well, which is hype. And I mean, the band has to have some sex appeal, right? And so we have Mr. Max Liu pulling up, and so that's him, which is awesome. And he just brings a lot of character because he's been a performer for a long time. He grew up doing hair metal, and so bringing that incredible like level of artist musicianship to the band really changed the game. And he's also co-producing and mostly executively producing Sweet Ohio Light. So that's like a really big thing that's off of my plate, which allows me to do all of the other hats that I wear. And then Kalen Quigley is our trumpet player who's also learned keys in order to maintain being incredibly vital in the band because you don't want just like a trumpet going the entire time of every song. So we gave him something to do, which was shredding on the keys. And he brings a lot to the band, especially in terms of humor. When you're backstage, you'll find him in his own little world, and it's absolutely hilarious. So we all ended up meeting through that Waka Flocka gig where I knew all of them a little bit, but that's what I had 12 days to assemble a band and assemble like click tracks and do all of that. And we had to do it all remotely because I had COVID, which is nuts. It's a whole thing. But we were all assembled at that point, and I think from there, we all knew what we had was something really special. And all of the industry people who were there at that show said the same thing. They were like, don't lose those guys because they make you better. And I'm like, true. And I will never bring up my music without bringing them up because without them, like we would not be where we are at all. And I think from a behind the scenes perspective, the guys are absolute goobers. They all love to like cook. So just the other night they were here and we had just an obscene amount of food working in the kitchen. Which is great for me because then they all left and I have all the leftovers, which is great.
Awesome.
uh, yeah, we do a lot of like disc golfing and such. So it's just a bunch of boys, it's a blast.
There you go. Hashtag push all the way, baby.
Exactly. Let's go. Come on.
So you mentioned a little bit about your new EP, Sweet Ohio Light Part 1. We wanted to know like what was the process of creating it and what your favorite song was on the EP.
Oh, that's everyone's gonna say like, oh, it's like choosing children, but I feel like since it's our first, like it's on the way to being our first album, I think that's a really hard one. So creating the album, I wrote most of it at the end of last year. So like, I don't know, August through November of 2023. And then we began rolling it out in February, just because it took a while to produce. So Max and I actually produced most of it remotely back and forth because I've been in Nashville a lot, just like networking and such and trying to become the next Justin Bieber, duh. No, but
Shout out, JB.
that was a lot of it. So I basically the way that the songs come to be is I create really crude demos as quickly as possible, just because I write a lot of songs and Max and I understand that if I spend too much time on production, like I can produce these songs, but if I just half produce them and let him then take creative control, it pretty much always goes better. And I can write double the amount of songs. And it just makes it so when we're hunting for the right songs for the album, we have more to choose from because like not every song everyone writes should go on a project. I learned that one the hard way.
Right.
So that's something that's kind of like how they were created. So we tracked everything live. That's what we're really proud of is there are no like MIDI samples. Everything is like all the from the risers to the drums. We decided we're gonna just do this in like the most integrity filled way we can, where this is as us as possible because we had 29 previous songs released plus a live album prior to this, and they all feel like a distant version of ourselves versus who we are now. And I think that making the album in this way where it took longer, but it took longer because we didn't cut corners, and like there are tiny imperfections that add to the character of it that I think are a really big thing. So that's how it was made. And my favorite song off of the album, oh God. See, I love the dramatics of Sweet Ohio Light. And when we played it in Nashville for the first time in front of anyone, it was it went really hard. Like that was a sleeper where that we needed a title track and that song felt like the most title tracky, you know. But I think from just a pure song standpoint, the one that I keep coming back to is Boston, which is like not a like track that's gotten any love, to be honest, but I think that's going to really stand the test of time. Something that my girlfriend told me about that song is she said, "I know you better because of that song." And
Wow.
I that was like a crazy compliment where I think that I achieved something that I was trying to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And didn't
absolutely.
know how to say otherwise, you know? So I think it's probably between Boston and Sweet Ohio Light, but Space to Grow seems to be the crowd favorite.
Yes, I will say Space to Grow was my favorite. I feel like as a college student, I just like connected to it a lot.
Well, thank you. That's really sweet.
It was I was like listening to the album yesterday, like as I was getting ready for bed, and I just kept replaying the song over and over and over again. I was like, I want to like
Thank you.
listen to the song constantly.
Thanks so much. That's so kind. I
Of
think that
course.
one was just like a guttural cry, especially in like the bridge when it's just like, and we did the whole like Phoebe Bridgers kind of thing where like live the other night, I just like told the crowd for everybody to just like scream like, and it was a cool moment because it just adds to what that bridge feels like, where it's just like a full embrace of like letting go, which is an oxymoron, but you know what I mean. So
Yes. Now, obviously, we both know that Columbus is a special place, right? And hopefully, Riley will soon see that Columbus is a special place. But
come
obviously,
on.
there's nothing like Columbus, and so you grew up there, and you can hear the Ohio, especially the Columbus roots, in your new album. Tell us, how has living in Columbus for most of your life inspired you with this new album that you've made?
Dude. Well, I feel like there's an important discrepancy that I have to make. So I grew up in Cincinnati, but I feel like I grew up, do you know what I mean, in college in Columbus. So I went to Loveland in Cincinnati until obviously the end of high school. But I just like need to say that for the record kind of thing, but it doesn't really matter. Um, I think the 4 years or 5 years that I spent like living in Columbus full time, because I kind of just like split time now. Really inspired me in a lot of ways because I learned what like love was in a friendship way, which was a completely different thing than I think what I had really believed and known. And since splitting time and being in Nashville a lot, there have been a lot of people who have said I have bring this like Midwestern vibe and like a politeness and a kindness that is less prominent around Nashville. You know what I mean? So I think I think getting away from Ohio actually taught me to love it even more. And when I'm back, which is constantly like every week, but when I'm back, it makes me appreciate it so much more because there's a sweetness, there's just a tone of, um, it's less hustle and bustle and more like I love you for who you are vibes. And I think I mentioned that in Boston. I say five friends in a new town. Five friends in a new town. Oh, it's five friends in a new town. I've been here a while now. I thought that by now I'd know the whole city. Um, Sometimes when I go out, the boys say you know about half of the zip code already, but I'm missing home, the familiar air, the kind that never puts too much pressure to bear. Five friends in a new town is enough to care. So I think that that's a pretty accurate um, description or like visualization of like moving away taught me what I had, you know what I mean, and still have when I'm back constantly. But I think that's where I grabbed a lot of inspiration was creating distance was a good thing. And in Sweet Ohio Light, I say proximity never had any hold on me, and I think that I wrote that in a point where I felt like, oh, Ohio's it, and like Ohio is like the entire world, and it is the epicenter of my heart for sure. But I think I've learned that like I do, they're like creating a bigger proximity between like where I am versus who I want to be is an important thing. So like just creating space is a good thing. So I think that's a really roundabout way to answer your question, but yeah, that's where we are.
No, I love that answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have about 5 minutes before Zoom's going to kick us off for
Okay.
the 40-minute limit, but we wanted to talk about your show here in Cleveland. We here at 88.3 This Thing are so excited about it. We want to know what you are most excited for. Give yourself a little time to shout it out. Tell the people what you are going to be doing there. And yeah, just tell us a
Can
little bit
do.
about your Cleveland show.
Let's go, man. I'm so stoked. So our Cleveland show is on April 6th. We're playing over at the Beachland Tavern. It's actually the smallest show on the tour, like in terms of capacity, but we did that on purpose because we want that room to be super packed out because last time we played in Cleveland, it was a big festival and it was super cool. We had a blast, but we felt like we've started from very small spaces in most cities. So we need to knock out those small ones and make it feel like an exclusive event. It's gonna sell out. It's a really small room. So if you're gonna come, like you gotta get your tickets pre-sale. Like I can't stress that enough. I don't think there will be any the day of. We'll see. But the reason we're playing that really small room is because we want it to feel like family in there, and the people that want to be there are the VIPs. You know, people always ask. They say, "Oh, can I get VIP?" I'm like, just come to a smaller show and you'll feel like one because I'll be sweating on you. You know. So I think that's a big push for that show. We're really excited. It's going to be the night after Columbus Against the World, which will be the biggest show on tour. And so I know I'm going to be itching to have something more small and like intimate where I can see everybody's face and like really connect with everyone. And I think that we're built for really, really big rooms, which is cool, but we will never forget what it's like to play in these smaller rooms. So Beachland Tavern, April 5th or April 6th. Beachland Tavern, April 6th. It's going to be a ripper of a time. We're not holding back in terms of set list on that one either. We're gonna play a lot of songs, and the bill is really stacked. There's locals, Meatball Mob, if you've heard of them, those legends. So they're opening up the night, and then we have Michigan native Emma Benovich also opening, and Philly natives Flavor Wave coming through. So we have a really regional and really cool lineup set up for the night. So yeah, come through. It's going to be a blast. Thank you so much for having me. This is like a blast. You guys have been one of the most supportive radio stations that I've ever had the opportunity to work with, and I'm so thankful for you. And I'll see you at the show.